I'm Barbara, and my mom was barely more than a kid herself when she had me, just 19 years old. She'd married my dad right after graduating high school, and I came along a year later. I remember how people would always mistake us for sisters when I was growing up, something that made Mom beam with pride every single time. I'd watch her get ready every morning, fascinated by her dedication to appearance. Even when money was tight, she never skipped her beauty routine. My dad would sometimes complain about the cost of her products, but Mom would just roll her eyes and say, "You married a beautiful woman, didn't you? Beauty takes maintenance." Everything seemed normal enough until I turned 10. That's when the fighting started, or maybe that's just when I started noticing it. The arguments would begin after I went to bed, but their voices would carry through our thin walls. It went on like this for months until one day, Dad just didn't come home. Mom sat me down on our beige couch, the one with the little wine stain that she'd tried so hard to hide with a throw pillow, and told me they were getting divorced. "But why?" I asked, my voice small and scared. "Sometimes grown-ups just can't live together anymore, honey," she said, but her eyes were already distant, like she was planning her next move. "You'll stay with me, and everything will be fine. You'll see." That's when the parade of uncles started. Mom would drop me off at Aunt Sarah's house more and more frequently, always with the same excuse, "Mommy needs some adult time, sweetie." You understand, right? I didn't understand, not really, but I nodded anyway. Aunt Sarah would try to make these visits fun, baking cookies with me or helping with my homework, but I wasn't stupid. I knew Mom was meeting men, trying to find my new daddy, as she'd sometimes say after a few glasses of wine. The first serious boyfriend lasted 3 months, before he discovered Mom had a daughter. I remember overhearing the fight through my bedroom wall. "You've been lying to me this whole time," he shouted. "A kid? Really, Sandra?" "I was going to tell you," Mom pleaded. "I just needed to find the right time." "The right time was 3 months ago," he said, and then I heard the door slam. That night, Mom came into my room and hugged me tight. "It's just you and me against the world, baby," she whispered, but somehow, even at that young age, I knew that wasn't quite true. It wasn't us against the world, it was Mom against getting older, against being alone, against accepting that life hadn't turned out the way she'd planned. The revolving door of Mom's boyfriends continued until I was 16. That's when everything changed. She met Robert. He was different from the start. I still remember the day she told him about me, expecting the usual reaction. We were all at a restaurant, and Mom was nervously playing with her napkin. "Robert, there's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice shaking. "I have a daughter. Barbara is 16. I held my breath, waiting for him to make some excuse and leave. Instead, he broke into a genuine smile and reached across the table to shake my hand. "I'd been wondering when I'd get to meet you," he said warmly. "Your mom's phone background is a picture of you two together." That was the first surprise. Mom hadn't deleted all traces of me from her phone this time. The second surprise was how natural everything felt after that. Robert didn't try too hard to be my dad or pretend we were instantly family. He just treated me like a person. "Hey Barbara, want to help me fix up the old Mustang in the garage?" he'd ask, or "What do you think about these paint colors for the living room?" 6 months later, they got married. It was a small ceremony, but it felt right. For the first time in years, I felt like we might actually be a normal family. Before I even turned 17, Mom announced she was pregnant. Emma came along just a few months after my 17th birthday, and Lucy followed almost exactly a year later. When I graduated high school, Dad came through with his promise to pay for my college tuition. "You earned this, kiddo," he told me as we looked through university brochures. "Pick wherever you want to go." I chose State University, 3 hours away. By then, Emma was 2 and Lucy had just turned 1. Robert was an amazing father to them both. The first year of college was a whirlwind of new experiences, but I came home regularly to visit. That's when things started to shift. Every single weekend I visited, without fail, Mom and Robert would have plans. "Barbara, honey, you don't mind watching the girls, right? Mom would say, already putting on her earrings. We haven't had a date night in ages, and you know how exhausting two little ones can be. But Mom, I was hoping to catch up with Ashley and Kim while I'm home, I'd say. We were planning to see a movie. Oh, you can do that next time. The girls have been so excited to see their big sister. You wouldn't want to disappoint them, would you? She'd give me that look, the one that made me feel guilty for even thinking about my own plans. Robert would look apologetic but wouldn't say anything. So there I'd be, weekend after weekend, making baby formula, changing endless diapers, and trying to keep two toddlers entertained. Emma was in her terrible twos, throwing tantrums at the drop of a hat, while Lucy was just learning to walk and needed constant supervision to prevent her from bumping into everything. I love my sisters, I really do. But I was 19, juggling a full course load, and my weekends at home had become exhausting babysitting shifts. Between the midnight feedings, the diaper changes, and the constant vigilance needed to keep two toddlers safe, I was more tired going back to campus than when I arrived. I sat down with Mom and Robert one Sunday evening after putting the girls to bed. I need to talk to you both, I said. I love Emma and Lucy, but I can't keep being the default babysitter every time I come home. Mom's face immediately darkened. What do you mean? They're your sisters. Don't you want to spend time with them? Of course I do, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. But I'm also a college student. I need some time to see my friends, to rest. Every weekend I come home, I leave more exhausted than when I arrived. Robert nodded thoughtfully. She has a point, Sandra. Barbara is still young. She should be able to enjoy her college years. We could hire a babysitter for our date nights, he continued, placing a hand on Mom's arm. I know a couple of reliable people through work. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but it was short-lived. Mom pulled her arm away from Robert. A stranger watching our children, she snapped. And Barbara, I can't believe you're doing this. You're being selfish, just like your father. That was the last weekend I spent at home during college. I still called to check on the girls, but I stopped making the 3-hour drive back. Mom's guilt-tripping texts became a regular thing. Your sisters keep asking where you are, and I guess family doesn't mean much to you anymore. 4 years passed. I graduated with my business degree and landed a junior management position back in my hometown. The salary wasn't great, but it was enough to rent a small one-bedroom apartment. I thought maybe now, with some distance and independence, things with Mom would improve. Then the bomb dropped. Mom and Robert were getting divorced. No warning, no explanation, just Mom calling to tell me it was over. The girls, now 5 and 4, would stay with her, and Robert agreed to pay generous alimony. I should have seen what was coming next. It started with a casual request, Barbara, could you watch the girls this Saturday? I have an appointment. That appointment turned out to be a date. Soon, history began repeating itself in a way that made my stomach turn. Every weekend, without fail, Mom would show up at my apartment with Emma and Lucy in tow. I was putting in 60-hour weeks at work, taking every extra shift I could get, determined to climb the corporate ladder. My rare days off should have been for catching up on sleep, meeting friends for coffee, maybe even dating. Instead, I found myself building pillow forts and mediating sisterly squabbles while Mom was out living her life, as she put it. The worst part? I couldn't say no. Not when Emma would look up at me with those big brown eyes, asking if we could make cookies together. Not when Lucy would curl up in my lap with her favorite storybook. They were innocent in all this, just like I had been at their age. One sleepless night, after another weekend of babysitting, I found myself scrolling through Mom's social media. What I saw made my blood run cold. Her profile was filled with selfies at bars, restaurants, and yoga studios, but Emma and Lucy were nowhere to be found. It was like they didn't exist in her online world. I did find one photo of myself with her, taken at a cafe last summer. The caption read, "Such a lovely lunch date." Can you guess if this is my sister or daughter? Forever 21, good genes. The comments made me want to scream. OMG Sandra, definitely your sister. You look way too young to have a daughter that age. Girl, you look younger than her. What's your secret? Sisters for sure. You're aging backwards. I laughed, but it was hollow. The reality hit me like a ton of bricks. Mom was doing exactly what she'd done with me years ago, hiding her children to appear more attractive to potential partners. History wasn't just repeating itself, it was getting worse. Robert would call me regularly to check on the girls. He was still such a good father, always asking about their schoolwork, their friends, if they needed anything. How are they really doing, Barbara? He'd ask, concern evident in his voice. Sandra doesn't tell me much anymore. I hated lying to him. They're good, Robert. Mom's taking good care of them. The words tasted bitter in my mouth, but Mom's warning echoed in my head, don't you dare tell Robert anything. He'll just try to take the girls away. Then came the day that changed everything. I stopped by Mom's house unannounced, arms loaded with bags of fresh fruit and treats for the girls. The moment I walked in, Emma and Lucy descended on the food like they hadn't eaten in days. Something felt off. I walked to the kitchen and opened the fridge. The sight made me sick, a half-empty bottle of milk, some condiments, and not much else. The cabinets were equally bare. Mom, I screamed, storming into her bedroom where she was trying on new clothes. Why is there no food in this house? What are the girls eating? She lifted her chin, showing off her newly tightened neck. Don't be so dramatic, Barbara. I had to get some work done. The alimony only stretches so far, and I need to look young if I want to find a good man. The girls can survive on simple meals for a few weeks. I felt something snap inside me. Are you serious? You spent their food money on plastic surgery? It's an investment in our future, she replied calmly. Once I find a wealthy husband, the girls will have everything they need. I'm calling Robert right now, I threatened, pulling out my phone. Mom's face crumpled. Please, Barbara, I promise it won't happen again. I'll go grocery shopping tomorrow. Just don't tell Robert, please. I put my phone away, but my hands were shaking with rage. I mean it, Mom. If I ever find out you're neglecting them again, I'm telling Robert everything. No more secrets, no more lies. And you can kiss your alimony goodbye. Just over a month after the refrigerator incident, Mom showed up at my apartment looking pale and distressed. Her usual perfect makeup was missing, and her hair hung limp around her face. Barbara, honey, I need your help, she said, her voice weak. I have to go to the hospital for emergency surgery today. I need you to watch the girls for a few days. I felt my heart race. What's wrong? Are you okay? The doctors found something, she said vaguely, pressing a hand to her stomach. I need to go in right away. Please, I have no one else to turn to. What about a professional babysitter? I suggested. I can pay for one myself. Someone who does this full-time could. No, Mom cut me off sharply, then softened her voice. No strangers. I don't trust them with my babies. Okay, well, what about Robert? He's their father. Or Aunt Sarah? Mom shook her head. Robert's not answering his phone, and Sarah's out of town on business. Please, Barbara, I'm desperate. I looked at Emma and Lucy standing quietly beside her, clutching their little backpacks. What choice did I have? Let me call my boss, I sighed, already reaching for my phone. I had to use my unpaid personal days, but at least my job was secure. The first day was exhausting. The girls seemed more unruly than usual, probably picking up on the stress of the situation. Emma threw tantrums over everything, the wrong color cup, Lucy touching her toys, the sandwich cut in squares instead of triangles. Lucy followed her sister's lead, and soon I had 2 screaming children on my hands, more often than not. By the second day, I was running on fumes. Between cooking meals, doing laundry, cleaning up endless messes, and trying to keep them entertained, I barely had time to breathe. I'd just gotten them down for a nap when my phone rang. Hey, Barbara, It was my friend Kelly, who lived near Mom's house. Some party your mom's throwing. There's loud music, tons of cars parked outside, and they've got these gorgeous string lights everywhere. Must have taken hours to set up. Is it someone's birthday? That's impossible, I said, my voice shaking. My mom's in the hospital having surgery. The girls are here with me. You must be looking at the wrong house. Barbara, I'm literally standing at my window right now. I can see your mom's red front door from here. The music is so loud I can hear it inside my house. There's definitely a party happening. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I tried calling Mom 5 times, straight to voicemail every time. Something wasn't right, and I was going to figure out what. I pulled up Mom's social media page, nothing new there. Just the usual selfies and inspirational quotes about living your best life. But then I remembered her best friend Janet's obsession with posting everything live. I clicked over to Janet's page, and there it was, a live stream. Oh my God, you guys, Janet's voice blared through my speakers. I am so excited to be here celebrating my bestie's engagement. Look at this gorgeous party she put together. The camera panned around my mother's living room, now transformed with twinkling lights and flowers. Dozens of people were mingling, champagne glasses in hand. My stomach lurched when I saw Mom in the background, radiant in a new red dress, nothing like the sick woman who'd shown up at my door. I can't believe this, I whispered to myself. The girls were still playing quietly in the next room. I needed to act fast. I called Aunt Sarah first. Sarah, Mom said you were out of town on business. What? No, I'm home. Why? I quickly explained the situation. Can you please come watch the girls for a few hours? I need to deal with something. Of course, honey. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Your mother's gone too far this time. Next, I called Robert. He picked up on the first ring. Barbara, is everything okay? Not answering your phone, huh? I said bitterly. That's what Mom told me when I suggested calling you about watching the girls. What are you talking about? Sandra hasn't called me in weeks. I took a deep breath and told him everything, the supposed emergency surgery, the girls staying with me, and what I'd just discovered on the live stream. She's throwing an engagement party? His voice was dangerously quiet. I'm picking you up in 10 minutes. Sarah's watching the girls? Yes, she's on her way. Good. It's time we had a family meeting. Those 10 minutes felt like hours. I paced the floor, alternating between rage and disbelief. When Robert's car pulled up, I was already waiting outside. The drive to Mom's house was tense. Robert's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I knew something wasn't right, he kept saying. The way she's been acting with the girls lately. I should have pushed harder. We could hear the music from halfway down the block. Cars lined both sides of the street, and light spilled from every window of the house. Robert parked right in the driveway, blocking in several other cars. Through the front window, we could see everything. Mom was in the center of the room, wrapped in the arms of a man I'd never seen before. He looked young, much younger than her. As we watched, she pulled him into a passionate kiss, while her friends cheered and raised their glasses. To Sandra and Mark, someone shouted. May you have the fairy tale ending you deserve. If they only knew what that fairy tale was costing her children. Robert and I walked straight into the house without knocking. Mom stood frozen in the middle of the room, her champagne glass slipping from her fingers and shattering on the hardwood floor. Barbara? Robert? Her face went from flushed to pale in seconds. What are you doing here? Funny, I said, my voice carrying across the now quieting room. I was about to ask you the same thing. Shouldn't you be in the hospital having emergency surgery? The young man beside her, Mark, I presumed, looked confused. Surgery? Sandy, what's she talking about? Oh, you haven't met? I stepped forward. I'm Barbara, her daughter. The one she apparently didn't want to invite to her engagement party. Mark's face lit up, completely misreading the situation. Your daughter? Sandy, why didn't you invite her to our party? This is wonderful. He extended his hand warmly. I've been so excited to learn more about your life. Oh, then you're going to love this, I said, pulling out my phone. I pulled up a recent photo of Mom with Emma and Lucy at the park, one of the rare ones she hadn't deleted. Here are your future stepdaughters. Emma's 5, and Lucy's 4. The color drained from Mark's face. He turned to my mother. You have 2 more children? Small children? Mom stepped forward, reaching for his arm. Mark, darling, I can explain. Explain what? His voice cracked. That you hid 2 small children from me? After I specifically told you I'm not ready for kids. I'm 28, Sandra. I told you I wanted to travel, build my career first. They're hardly ever around, Mom pleaded. Their father takes them most of the time. Actually, Robert cut in, his voice ice cold, that's not true. Barbara's been watching them every weekend while you go dating. And apparently now you're dumping them on her with fake medical emergencies so you can throw engagement parties. The guests were starting to edge toward the door, sensing the impending explosion. Mark looked like he'd been slapped. This is insane, he shook his head. A complete hoax. He backed away from Mom. The wedding's off, Sandra. I can't even look at you right now. Within minutes, the house had cleared out. Mom stood in the middle of her decorated living room, mascara running down her face. How could you? She screamed at me. You've ruined everything. My one chance at happiness. Happiness? Robert's voice boomed. What about our daughter's happiness? The daughters you've been neglecting while you chase men? Barbara told me about the empty fridge, Sandra. About the plastic surgery. First thing tomorrow, I'm calling my lawyer. I'm filing for full custody. Mom's face contorted. You can't. I can and I will. You won't have to hide them anymore, Sandra. They'll live with me full time. And you can forget about the alimony, you've made it very clear how you're spending it, and it's not on our children. The drive back to my apartment was silent. When we arrived, Emma and Lucy ran to their father, throwing their arms around his legs. Daddy, are we having a sleepover at your house? Robert knelt down, hugging them close. More than a sleepover, sweethearts. You're going to come live with Daddy now. The girls cheered, and my heart broke a little. They didn't even ask about their mother. The aftermath of the engagement party explosion played out exactly as I should have expected. Mom took to social media like a warrior going to battle. Her posts started appearing everywhere. My own daughter betrayed me out of jealousy. She couldn't stand to see her mother happy and in love. Toxic daughter, betrayal. I couldn't stay silent. Under each post, I left simple, factual comments. You told me you were having emergency surgery while throwing an engagement party. You spent your children's food money on plastic surgery. You left your daughters with me every weekend while dating. The family started taking sides. But unlike what Mom expected, most of them stood with me. Aunt Sarah was the first to speak up. Sandra, we've watched you neglect your children for years. Barbara was protecting her sisters. Then came the trial. I'll never forget sitting in that cold courtroom, watching Mom try to maintain her usual perfect facade while Robert's lawyer methodically destroyed it. The financial records were damning, page after page of expenses laid bare on the projector screen. $5,000, Botox and fillers. $8,000, breast augmentation. $3,000, laser treatments. $2,500, personal trainer. $1,800, designer clothing. And then, in stark contrast, $200, children's clothing, 3 months. $150, school supplies. $300, groceries, monthly average. When it was my turn to testify, Mom wouldn't look at me. I told the court everything, the empty fridge, the constant babysitting under false pretenses, the way she hid the girls from potential boyfriends. The judge's decision was swift and unequivocal. Mom was stripped of her parental rights. She stormed out of the courtroom without looking back. That was 6 months ago. Mom doesn't speak to me anymore. I'm a traitor now. Sometimes she still posts about me, about what a terrible daughter I am, how I destroyed her life. I've stopped reading them. Through the grapevine, I hear she's living with her friend Janet now. Robert took possession of the house he'd been paying for, and Mom had to move out. It's probably easier for her now, I told Robert recently, while watching Emma and Lucy play in his backyard. She doesn't have to hide any children anymore. He squeezed my shoulder. Their loss is our gain. And he's right. The girls are thriving with Robert. They're in therapy, dealing with their abandonment issues, but they're happy. Their rooms are filled with artwork and toys. The fridge is always stocked. They're in dance classes and soccer teams, and their father never misses a recital or a game. I go over for dinner twice a week now, and we actually get to enjoy our time together. Last night, Emma showed me her science project while Lucy practiced reading out loud. No pressure, no guilt, no manipulation, just family being family. Sometimes I wonder if Mom will ever realize what she gave up in her endless pursuit of youth and romance. But that's not my problem anymore. My job now is to be the big sister these girls deserve, to help them grow into strong women who know their worth isn't measured by their appearance or relationship status. As for me, I'm finally living my own life. I got that promotion at work. I'm dating someone who makes me laugh. And every time I see my sister's faces light up when I visit, I know I made the right choice.
It was 15 years ago, back when I was in elementary school. April had just arrived and we had a class shuffle. Our new teacher was a young woman. When lunchtime came, she turned to the girl sitting next to me and said, "Katie, you haven't paid your lunch fee, so don't eat, okay?" Katie, always wearing ragged clothes, was a skinny little girl. Her family was poor, and since the previous fall, her parents hadn't been paying the school lunch fee. I overheard some gossip and learned that she had been allowed to eat lunch the year before. Seeing her sitting there with no food on her desk, looking down, made me feel sorry for her. Since the teacher ate lunch in the same room, I couldn't secretly share my food with her. Instead, I left just the bread, wrapped it in a napkin, hid it in my desk, and gave it to Katie after lunch when the teacher left the room. "You can eat this," I said. "Really? Thank you, Jason," Katie replied. Back then, I was an outcast with no friends in the same class, but after that incident, I started talking to Katie. When I got home that day, I told my mom about Katie's situation. "Mom, please, can you make a packed lunch for Katie?" My mom responded, "That poor child. If she can't eat lunch, it won't be good for her growth, and she probably can't concentrate on her studies when she's hungry. It's fine. I'm already making your dad's lunch every day, so adding one more portion won't make much difference." With that, she gladly agreed. The next day at lunch, I handed over the homemade lunch my mom had made. Katie's eyes widened in surprise. "My mom said to give this to you. Is this a packed lunch?" "Yeah, I told her about you, and she said to give it to you." "Really? Thank you, Jason." She hurriedly ate the lunch before the teacher returned. It turned out that Katie's house was in the same direction as mine, so from that day on, we decided to walk home together. While walking, Katie told me about her life. "My dad doesn't work, he spends all our money on slot machines and horse races. My mom earns the money, but my dad takes it all. Because of this, they were struggling and even in debt." Seeing her in the same tattered clothes every day, I felt sorry for her. Our classmates just watched her from a distance. Neither of us had friends. After that, we started meeting up in the morning and going to school together. Some classmates teased us, saying, "Are you two dating or something?" But we tried not to let it bother us. I had always been bad at talking to people, but for some reason, I felt at ease talking to Katie. I didn't realize it, but I was lonelier than I thought. Not having any friends, I was really happy to be able to talk to her. On our way to and from school, we talked about many things: our families, our favorite foods and animals, homework, and TV shows we watched the previous night. I found out she loves cats. She couldn't have one at her house but enjoyed visiting the nearby park where stray cats often gather. "My family has a cat. Want to come over and see it?" "Really? Sure." When I brought her to my house after school that day, my mom warmly welcomed her. When our mixed breed cat showed up, Katie's eyes sparkled with delight. How cute! What's its name? It's Mary. Mary, come here. Katie looked so happy cuddling the cat, playing with toys, and feeding it treats. Seeing her radiant smile, which she didn't show at school, made me happy too. In the blink of an eye, it was evening, and my mom prepared dinner for Katie as well. Katie, can you give me your home phone number? I'll call your folks and let them know you're here. With that, my mom called her house. During the call, she seemed deeply engrossed in the conversation. After that day, Katie began having dinner at our house every night. Apparently, her mom often worked late, and her dad, who was at home, didn't do any housework. As a result, their dinner time was always late. With her parents' permission, my mom started looking after her meals. After school, Katie and I would do her homework and play with the cat until dinner. However, about a year into this routine, Katie had to move. Her parents divorced, and she decided to go with her mom to live with her maternal grandparents in Texas. Before they left, Katie and her mom came over to say goodbye. I can't thank you enough for all that you've done for Katie. We'll never forget your kindness, her mother said, bowing to my mom. Oh, please, it's okay. Please raise your head. We help each other out during tough times. Don't give it another thought, my mom replied. She was a person of strong principles and kindness, and I have tremendous respect for her. I can't recall the conversation I had with Katie that day, but I haven't seen her since. We exchanged Christmas cards every year, but that also ceased after 5 to 6 years. Then I graduated from college and started working at a precision machinery manufacturer. I was assigned to sales, and it's been 3 years now. Taking over clients from seniors and establishing new ones, I now handle numerous major accounts. Good morning, Jason. My colleague Mike from the next desk greeted me. Good morning. Tomorrow we've got a meeting with AB Electronics. It's a big deal that's vital for the company. You pumped and prepared? Yes, I'll have it ready for review later. As we talked, a secretary called out to Mike. Mike, there's a call for you from AB Electronics. Picking up the phone, Mike's face turned pale rapidly. What? How could this? Yes, I see. I'm terribly sorry. Right away, please, can you give us one more chance? Wait, hold on. After hanging up, he just stared blankly, still holding the phone. What happened? I asked. Turning to me, he said, Jason, you gave the wrong time to AB Electronics for our meeting, didn't you? They thought the meeting was yesterday. They're furious that we stood them up. This deal is toast. It's your fault. What? But wasn't it you who communicated the schedule to them? What are you trying to pin this on me? I wanted to throw his words right back at him. To begin with, I hadn't communicated the schedule to the client at all. Mike had arranged the schedule and then informed me about it later, and yet he was trying to blame it on me. Mike reported the matter to his boss, and our supervisor Johnson went to apologize on his behalf. However, they wouldn't listen, and in the end, the deal with AB Electronics fell through. When Johnson returned, he said to me, Jason, what have you done? Because of you, the crucial deal we staked our company's future on has been ruined. How are you going to make this right? But sir, it wasn't me who informed them about the schedule. It was Mike. Enough. No excuses. You've caused harm to the company. Maybe you should consider resigning. That's something Johnson always says when he's angry. Wait, I really don't want to quit. Then bring in a contract worth the same amount as the machine we were going to sell to AB Electronics within 3 days, or you're fired. How could I possibly secure such a deal in just 3 days? I was at a loss for words after hearing Johnson's ultimatum, but then I remembered something. There was a client who was currently considering purchasing the same machine we were planning to sell to AB Electronics. They always tried to haggle the price down, constantly negotiating for discounts. I'd almost given up, thinking they had no intention of buying, but now I had to somehow close the deal with them. I quickly revised the quotation and set an appointment with the client. Upon arriving at their company, a man named Kevin assisted me. I've brought a new quotation today, I said, handing him the quote. Kevin scrutinized it. Can't you go a little lower? I really can't go any lower. We've adjusted the price several times already, I pleaded, putting on a distressed look. Please, Kevin, I'm sure our equipment will be very beneficial to your company. We'll even include regular maintenance. Kevin pondered, crossing his arms. I get what you're saying, but at this price, my superiors might not approve. I personally want to purchase it, but how about I explain the benefits directly to your boss, maybe over a meal or something? That might be difficult. My boss is pretty busy. I'm begging you, Kevin. Please just give me a chance to discuss it over dinner. I pleaded desperately. The machine sells for tens of thousands of dollars. For our company, the cost of a dinner would be insignificant compared to the sale. All right, but my boss is out right now. I'll get back to you another day. That's fine, thank you so much. Kevin saw me out of the conference room. Just then, the elevator opened and an older man entered the office. Supervisor, I wanted to see you. Do you have a moment? Seeing him, Kevin immediately approached. So this is Kevin's superior, I thought. Kevin explained the situation to the supervisor, but to my surprise, the supervisor began to shout angrily. Trying to win us over with a dinner? We've told you countless times if we can't afford it, we can't buy it. If you can't offer a better price, then just leave and don't come back. Did I do something so wrong to be yelled at like this? While I was still in shock, Kevin whispered to me as he nudged me towards the exit. I'm sorry, he is just in a bad mood today. He always lashes out like this when he's upset. It seems the supervisor is quite a difficult character. But without his approval, we won't be able to finalize the deal. If I don't land this contract, I'm going to lose my job. What should I do? As I was racking my brain, I heard the sound of heels clicking down the hallway. Wait, supervisor. I turned around to the sound of a young woman's voice. There stood a beautiful woman in a business suit. Watson, what's up? She quickly approached the puzzled-looking supervisor. I've reviewed the documents too, and I believe that equipment from that company would be valuable for us. Please consider purchasing it. She looked straight into the supervisor's eyes as she spoke. Well, if you say so, Watson. Kevin, move forward with the contract process right away. Supervisor then turned to me and said, That's what I was saying. I was absolutely gobsmacked for a moment. I had no idea what had just happened. So you're saying you'll make the purchase? Yes. Jason can't say no when the boss's daughter asks now, can we? Boss's daughter? As I looked at her, she smiled and said, Jason, long time no see. Don't you remember me? Even though she said that, I didn't recall knowing any Watson, but as I continued to gaze into her face, it felt somewhat familiar. Wait, who are you again? I asked. She spoke up again. Do you remember me as Katie? Katie. Oh. I realized she was talking about the same Katie I used to walk to and from school with and hang out with at my place during grade school. She had changed so much I didn't recognize her. Wow, it's been like 15 years, hasn't it? Yeah, so nostalgic. I saw your name on the business card attached to the documents and thought it might be you. Really? But Watson. Actually, my mom remarried when I was in high school and I took on the name Watson. Wow, really? Hey Jason, instead of just standing here chatting, want to go out for a drink tonight? Sure, sounds good. Katie and I exchanged contact info and planned to meet for drinks after work. When I got back to the office and reported the good news, my supervisor was taken aback. You really got the contract? Yes, we haven't signed the papers yet, but we got the green light. Great job, Jason. Supervisor was thrilled. Looking over at my colleague, Mike, he seemed uneasy at his desk. After wrapping up work for the day and heading to the bar for our meetup, I found Katie already waiting. Thanks for today. You saved me. I didn't get fired because of you. What are you talking about? As I filled her in, she was sympathetic. It's terrible for a senior to put the blame on a junior like that, huh? Well, thanks to you, the deal went through, so I'm really grateful. Seriously, thanks. Upon hearing my gratitude, Katie shyly smiled. I'm honored I could help. To be honest, I've always been grateful to you for everything. We lost touch after I moved, but I'm glad we could reconnect like this. According to Katie's story, when she was in high school, her mother divorced and began dating the man who was then the manager of the office where she worked. They eventually got married. However, a few years later, Katie's stepfather's father, the CEO of the New York headquarters, retired, and Katie's stepfather had to take over his position. Their whole family moved to the city. You could have let me know when you moved back. Sorry, but weren't you the one who stopped replying to my New Year's cards first, Jason? Did I? Yes, so I thought maybe you found a girlfriend and I didn't want to intrude. Turns out I never did get a girlfriend. Really? No girlfriend? Nope, none. Well, maybe our meeting here is fate. If you're okay with it, would you like to date me? I was taken aback by her sudden confession and was rendered speechless for a moment, but it wasn't that I disliked the idea. I was actually really happy. Back in elementary school, being around her always made me happy, and whenever she laughed, I felt joy. I remembered that feeling. Of course, I'd love to. I extended my right hand to her, and she gently took it. Really? I'm so happy. This is how we started dating. 2 years later, I proposed, and we got married. Mary, dinner's ready, Katie called, and our cat responded with a soft meow. Seeing her play with our cat, she seemed just like old times. Katie had faced many challenges growing up. From now on, I wanted to be by her side and make her happy. Hello everyone, my name is Miranda. I'm here to share the story of how my daughter and I sought revenge against my husband. The trouble centers around a major company that my husband used to own. I say used to because at this moment, neither is the company flourishing, nor is he the owner anymore. If you want to know how that came to be, follow this story closely. I have always been a hard-working woman. My parents were poor and took on the toughest jobs to make ends meet. I grew up in poverty and attended a public school, but I never complained. I worked hard and earned excellent grades. Upon graduating, I received an amazing scholarship for a business degree. My dream come true. It was while studying that I met my husband, Jordan. Like me, he was majoring in business, and we bonded over our shared ambition to start our own company. Eventually, we became close and started dating. He was an amazing boyfriend and later a good husband. After graduating from college, both Jordan and I landed high-paying jobs. However, once we got engaged, Jordan left his job to start his own company. Since he lacked the funds to launch a business, I decided to support him financially. Jordan, I said, I know you really want to build a company. I want you to follow your dreams. You can quit your job and start your company now. But I don't have the money, Miranda. If I don't work, where will the capital come from? Besides, I have to support myself. I will take care of everything, Jordan. With my salary, I can support both of us financially. I'll use my savings so you can start immediately. You don't have to worry about anything. Really, Miranda? You'll do that for me? God, I am so lucky to have you. I was serious about supporting him, and I did much more than that. For over 25 years, I worked for his company without having any stake in it. It was entirely his. I helped him financially and sacrificed my savings while he was building his empire. I even helped out at work after finishing my own job. Through my networking efforts, I provided Jordan with a significant clientele. He managed the internal team and daily operations, and gradually, the company became successful. I quit my job and took a position at his company to help him out. Together, we made our dream come true. We were happy, both professionally and in our married life. However, things didn't stay that way for long. The trouble began when I gave birth to our daughter, Mona. I could tell that Jordan was disappointed. Jordan, what's wrong? You don't seem very happy. It's not important, Miranda. It's just that I wanted a son. I was hoping for an heir for my company. Our daughter can be your heir, Jordan. We're both here to guide her. She'll be perfect. Don't worry about this. Jordan didn't argue further, but I could tell he wasn't convinced. Despite my best efforts to alleviate his concerns, they never went away. Things got even worse when his sister gave birth to a boy named Taylor. Jordan was thrilled and spent a lot of time with him. While I was happy that he finally got to do boy things with someone, I never imagined he would end up neglecting our daughter because of it. Whenever Mona and Taylor got into trouble, Mona always received the scolding. Jordan and his sister dismissed Taylor's actions with boys will be boys. I had numerous arguments with Jordan about it, but he saw nothing wrong with what he was doing. One day, Mona came to me and asked, Mom, why doesn't Dad love me? Is it because I'm a girl? Mona, dear, why are you thinking like this? That's not true at all. Your dad loves you very much. But Taylor said Dad doesn't love me. Dad likes him better. He plays with him all the time and gives him lots of attention. Darling, Taylor isn't telling the truth. Don't listen to him. Your dad loves you, Mona. Just then, Jordan and Taylor walked in, holding hands and smiling at each other. For some reason, it made my heart go cold. Taylor approached us and said, I'm not lying, Miranda. Jordan does love me more. He's told me that many times. I just told Mona today. Taylor, that's a very mean thing to say. Jordan loves both of you. There's no reason to hurt Mona like that. Stop scolding him, Miranda. He's just a boy. He loves me and doesn't want to share. There's no reason to scold him. He said nothing wrong. I do love him a lot. Mona needs to be less sensitive about everything. Yes, Jordan comforted Taylor instead of her own daughter. Mona cried silent tears while holding onto my dress. From that day, I started to resent my husband little by little. We fought a lot over his favoritism, but he never listened to me. I stayed with him because of my daughter. Despite everything, Mona loved her dad and wanted his undivided love. She worked hard to earn it, always telling people that her dad was her idol and role model. Sadly, Jordan never valued her immense love for him. Years passed and the favoritism never stopped. Mona tried even harder to impress her father. She was a good kid with great grades and never received any complaints from school. However, Taylor was a spoiled child who constantly looked down on people. Yet in my husband's eyes, he was always the better one. When Mona graduated from high school and wanted to pursue a business degree, Jordan didn't pay much attention. However, when Taylor asked us to fund his business degree, he jumped at the opportunity and paid for it entirely out of our pocket. Mona managed to graduate from college and secure a good job in my husband's industry. Meanwhile, Taylor dropped out and spent his time and money on video games. Instead of reconsidering his stance, Jordan gave Taylor a job at our company, but he never offered Mona a position. Taylor wasn't a stellar employee. He often slacked off, making others, including Jordan, do his work. Seeing all this, Mona was heartbroken yet determined to win her dad's approval. I'd also worked hard at the company, striving to make it successful and leave a legacy for my daughter. Never in my wildest dreams had I imagined that my efforts would go in vain. When Jordan and I were in our 60s, he suddenly decided he wanted to retire and spoke about handing over the business soon. In my mind, I thought Mona would inherit the company as our daughter and legal heir. However, that never happened. One day, Jordan came home from work looking very happy and called Mona over, saying he had something important to discuss. I thought he would finally ask her to take over the company. Instead, he announced something despicable with a grin on his face. "I transferred the business to Taylor today," he said. "We signed all the papers, and he'll be taking over the company next month. I wanted to let you both know." "You have to be kidding me. You gave our company to Taylor. Are you insane? You never even discussed this with me. And what about Mona? Did you actually overlook your own daughter? Mona is a woman and can't handle the hardships of running a business. She's not fit for the company. Taylor has been with me for a while and is more suited, so I made this decision." "God, you gave the company to Taylor? He can't even handle basic tasks. I've been working in this sector for a long time, and you think I'm unworthy." "Taylor isn't a pro at this yet, but he'll learn. He's a man, so it won't be difficult for me to groom him for the role. It would have been impossible for you even with experience." "How dare you say that, Jordan? I'm a woman, and I helped you set up this business. I spent 25 years of my life supporting you and this company. You've overlooked my feelings as well." Jordan's blatant sexism and disregard for both Mona's and my contributions were the final straws. It was clear he would never see us as equals, and I knew I had to do something to change the course of our lives. "Look, Miranda, I'm grateful for your help, but this company is in my name. Only I have the right to decide what happens to it. My decision is final, and everything is set. There is no room for arguments." I was reeling from Jordan's words. It felt like my entire world had come crashing down. I had spent half of my life working tirelessly for the company, all for my family and in the hope that one day, my daughter would inherit it. Jordan disregarded everything and handed the company to his nephew. I should have seen this coming, but I was naive enough to believe Jordan wouldn't do it. I was wrong. He casually handed over our blood and sweat to his nephew, a complete loser who couldn't hold a job. Mona was also exceptionally heartbroken. She had spent years trying to earn her father's approval and worked hard to prove she was capable of handling the company's affairs. Jordan wiped out years of her hard work with a single decision. We were completely cheated out of our fair share, and it felt surreal. Jordan's nonchalant attitude only made things worse. That night, Mona came to me alone and broke down in tears. Seeing her in pain crushed me inside. Anger started to bubble up in my heart, and I made a plan. I was going to destroy Jordan's business. I would get my revenge against him for me and Mona. I encouraged my daughter to start her own company in the same industry. "You need to make use of your skills and open your own company," I said. "I know you have learned a lot over the years. Your experience will help you immensely. You don't need Jordan's company. You will make your own. I will help you as I helped him." "Mom, I'm not sure," Mona replied. "I mean, I always did everything under your guidance. How can I be confident about a new venture?" "Mona, you are a pro now. I have full faith in you. Your dad only became so successful because I invested money and helped him navigate business decisions. Without me, he wouldn't have secured so many clients. But will it be okay to go against Dad? I know if I start a new company, many clients would leave him. Won't you be mad at me? You did put a lot of effort into Dad's company. I know it's like your baby. You have my full support, Mona. Your dad used us to build his clientele. If he doesn't care about our feelings, you don't need to either. I could tell that slowly. I was getting through to her. She was super upset at her dad, feeling used and discarded simply because she was a woman. The fact that Taylor gloated about taking over the company also fueled the fire. Since Jordan gave away the company without consulting me, I was going all out to destroy him. I would help my daughter become even more successful than her father. I also knew that I would divorce my husband. However, that would have to wait. First, I needed to help Mona set up her company. Since retiring, Jordan rarely paid any attention to this company. He was content banking on his shares and enjoying the fruits of my labor. Mona had also stopped speaking to her father, and I rarely interacted with him, so he had no idea Mona had even opened a new company. Gradually, word spread about Mona's company. I shared what Jordan had done and why I was supporting Mona instead. People were shocked by Jordan's blatant favoritism and became reluctant to do business with him. Additionally, they were skeptical of working with Taylor, given his lack of experience. When they heard I was helping Mona run her business, they preferred to work with us. As I mentioned before, all these clients had joined our old company due to my efforts. Jordan's company started losing clients at an alarming rate. He was confused about why his shares were dropping rapidly. When Taylor frantically informed Jordan about what was happening, he finally came to his senses. Mona has started a new company, Jordan, Taylor said. She is competing with us now. She's the reason we've lost so many clients. You need to do something. What? That's impossible. Mona can't open a business. She is a woman. A woman cannot just open a big business and become successful like that. No, Jordan, it's true. Your daughter has opened a company. Look at this. Our clients have mentioned they no longer want to work with us because Miranda left and is supporting Mona instead. Some clients even said their colleagues mentioned that Mona was way better at the job, so they decided to leave as well. No, that's impossible. This is a man's job. How can they rely on Mona so much? She can never be as good as me and you. She's not a man. You might want to rethink that, Jordan. As you can see, Mona is doing much better than you, even though she just started. Plus, you keep forgetting one thing. It was me who helped you get more clients. So it's natural you will lose them if I start supporting someone else. How can you do this to our company, Miranda? We built this together. Don't you have any remorse for destroying us? Stop saying us, Jordan. Even after I helped you build the company, you overlooked me and gave it to Taylor. You never once consulted me about your decision. Now you and he can figure out how to save your company. I said that and immediately left. They kept calling for me and asking me to talk, but I didn't listen. While Taylor and Jordan were busy discussing what they could do, I packed my bags and left for my daughter's house. She knew about my plans to divorce Jordan and was supporting me. When I arrived at her house, she already had a room prepared for me. When Jordan noticed I had left and taken some of my things, he started blowing up my phone. First, his messages were filled with demands for me to come home, then with rants about how I was destroying his life and hard work. I read every message but didn't reply. I didn't answer his calls or respond to his voicemails. A few days passed and Jordan didn't come to Mona's house to talk things out with us. Instead, he was busy trying to use his brains and do some damage control at his company. However, he soon realized that it was too late. Even employees started to quit since Mona's company offered better pay and guaranteed a steady cash flow from her growing clientele. Many high-ranking employees left the old company and joined us instead. About 2 weeks later, Jordan did show up at Mona's door just after my lawyer had served him with divorce papers. He came and said, "Miranda, Mona, please don't do this to me. I am your family, and so is my company. Have some mercy on me. Mona, I have no problem with you starting the company, but please don't take away my clients. We will go under if you don't stop." "Why should I care about you and your company, Dad?" Mona replied. "You made it clear that I was not a part of it. And you made it clear I was no part of it either," I added. "You don't get to come here and make demands, Jordan." "Look, I know I messed up, but I only did what I thought would be best for the company," he pleaded. And that meant handing over your power to your useless nephew who doesn't have any concrete knowledge of running businesses. That makes total sense, Dad, Mona retorted. You made it clear back then that I didn't deserve the company because I was a woman, and you ignored Mom's perspective on this because she is a woman. I'm sorry, Mona. Please, guys, just tell me how I can make this right. I don't want to divorce Miranda, Mona. I don't want to destroy our relationship. I love you guys. Those are lies, Jordan. You were only here because of your company. If you had even a little respect for us and our hard work, you would never have gone behind our backs. Hell, even 2 weeks ago, you said it's impossible for Mona to have a successful company. The joke's on you, Dad. With Mom's help and my skills, I'm all set to have an even bigger and better company than you guys. Please don't do this. Fine, if you want to destroy Taylor and the company, then go ahead. I guess I deserve that, but please don't abandon me. I need you guys. You are my family. There is no use crying now, Jordan. You made your choices and we made ours. We don't have to have any kind of relationship with you. We are done, Mona said, outright disowning her dad and kicking him out. Jordan begged and pleaded, but we didn't hear him out. He had lost all his chances and wouldn't be getting another one. Both Mona and I were heartbroken over what had happened. It was a big blow, especially since the betrayal came from the one closest to us. Months passed and neither Mona nor I relented. I divorced Jordan and ended up getting the house. Meanwhile, Jordan chose to keep the company, still holding on to the hope of restoring his reputation and clientele. I knew the business better than him and could tell that it would never stand again. Taylor was a lousy boss with no business sense. All he did was shout at his employees and lay down inhumane rules. There were numerous complaints about the internal workings of the company, and many people left their jobs. Currently, it is standing on a very shaky foundation, and the future looks bleak. Jordan begged me and Mona to stay in touch. Mona outright told him that he was no longer welcome in her life. I stopped speaking to Jordan long ago, but he still tries to reach out. Mona and her fiancé have taken over their company, and everything is running smoothly. I am still a major investor and own many shares, so I am set for life. I plan on retiring and buying a house by the beach in a few years. For us, the future holds a lot of promise, while Jordan and Taylor are stuck in the ruins of the past. On that significant day, I found myself standing before my father's grave. My father had been the CEO of a major company, and after his death, my brother-in-law Kyle inherited both the company and a substantial fortune. In stark contrast, all I received was an old mini truck. Kyle, flaunting his newfound wealth, mockingly remarked, "With this, I've got the company and the entire estate in my grasp. That mini truck suits you." Yet to me, that mini truck was more than just a vehicle. As I looked at it fondly and started the engine, I noticed a destination already set on the navigation system. "What's this?" I wondered. With a firm yet gentle grip, I began to drive. My name is Jack Nicholson. I am a 44-year-old tutor, now standing before a large coffin where my father rests peacefully. My relationship with him had always been complicated. He built a construction company from scratch, but I chose a different path, leaving home right after university to become a teacher, fulfilling a childhood dream. This decision led to many heated arguments, and for a long time, we barely spoke. Despite our disagreements, I never hated my father. I had my own dreams to follow and couldn't give them up to run the family business, even though I felt a strong duty as the eldest son. Guilt weighed on me for not meeting my father's expectations, keeping me from visiting my parents' home. My mother relied on my sister Lauren to update my father about my life. Lauren and her husband often sent expensive gifts or arranged trips for my father's birthday or their anniversary, pretending they were from me. Each time, Lauren would encourage me, saying, "I wish you and Dad could talk directly. He's just trying to be strong. Deep down, he must be feeling lonely." I often thought about Lauren's words and would just shake my head. One day, I got the sad news that my father had cancer. When I heard this, I quickly quit my job and returned to where my family lived. I realized that what really mattered was life itself, and the past arguments with my father seemed so small. I decided to move back to my hometown, teach at a local school, and take care of my sick father. At first, my father was shocked to see me return, but he eventually accepted it quietly. I didn't say much either. I just stayed by his side and took care of him, helping him whenever he needed it. He would thank me softly, and those words brought me some peace. Sadly, my father's fight with his illness ended. The last chapter of his life closed quietly with me, Lauren, and our mother by his side. We couldn't know what he was thinking in his last moments, but we hoped his soul was at peace. Even though we expected it, losing him deeply affected us all. My mother, Lauren, and even my young nephew, Peter, were all very sad and cried. The only one who didn't show any emotion was my brother-in-law, Kyle. During the funeral preparations, he coldly asked, "Did he finally die, huh?" Hearing that, I was proud of myself for staying calm and not reacting angrily to Kyle. Instead, I focused on planning my father's funeral, keeping myself busy to distract from the pain. I ignored Kyle's harsh words and made sure everything for the funeral was done right. Kyle and I had never gotten along well, and our relationship only worsened over time. But despite everything, I kept my focus during this tough time. I first met Kyle when he was a skilled worker at my father's company, and I really respected his abilities. It felt like I had gained a real brother when Kyle married my sister Lauren. He was 5 years older than me and seemed like a role model. Before they got married, I often asked him for advice on various problems, and he always listened with understanding. One of our big discussions was about whether I should join the family business. Kyle would say, "A son should live his own life. Jack, you have your own path. No one knows which choices in life are the best, so the most important thing is to make choices you won't regret later." Encouraged by his words, I switched from business school, where I was studying management, to the Faculty of Education, where I truly wanted to study. As time went on, Kyle and Lauren got married and started their life together. 22 years passed, and the distance between my father and me grew wider. I moved on with my life, missing the chance to close that gap. But when I heard about my father's illness, I dropped everything and rushed home. Kyle, who once greeted me warmly, had changed. He now seemed uncomfortable around me. When we were alone, Kyle would say coldly, "You came back in a hurry when you heard he was sick, didn't you? But no matter what, you won't inherit anything." His words caught me off guard, and I struggled to respond. "What do you mean?" "Don't act like you don't know. It might be a coincidence, but even if you now want to run the company, it's already decided who will be the next leader." His harsh words shocked me, and I replied louder than I intended, "No, that's not it. I did come back for the company. I realized I hadn't been a good son and wanted to apologize to Dad, even if it's late." Kyle dismissed me. "I don't need your fancy talk. It sounds like something from a TV drama. Lori likes that kind of stuff. But were all those gifts you sent just a way to look good in front of him?" "That's absolutely not true." I tried to explain, but Kyle had already made up his mind and wasn't interested in believing me. His words also seemed like a slight against Lauren, and for the first time, I felt a deep divide between us. Ever since that incident, I started to feel really upset with Kyle. He began to mock me openly. "No matter how much you try to win him over, that time has passed. Don't make me laugh. Go back to where you belong and take care of your troubled students," he would say. At first, I thought deeply about how I appeared to others and how they saw me, but Kyle's words showed he was more concerned about himself than our father. His behavior often seemed disrespectful to both his father-in-law and his wife, Lauren. I started to believe that Kyle had married Lauren mainly to get closer to my father's company and wealth. He rarely visited my father when he was ill and didn't help take care of him. Now, all I could do was work as hard as possible to protect the company my father had built. Kyle always sounded polished, but he really just wanted to avoid problems. On weekends, he would go play golf, claiming it was for business. He hardly ever took care of his own son. He said he wanted his son to learn many skills to eventually take over the business, but he left all the driving and housework to Lauren. When Lauren showed a bit of unhappiness about this, Kyle would passionately take her hand and say, "I'm giving my all for his sake. Now is the time to produce results by any means necessary. Let's overcome this trial together." Lauren found it hard to stand up to him and usually just nodded, even though she seemed reluctant. Kyle was good at acting like the perfect husband in front of Lauren, so it's no surprise she believed him. He showed his true self to me, probably because he thought I was like him. I eventually got used to Kyle's mocking, and it didn't bother me as much. However, when our beloved father passed away, I was heartbroken. I felt a deep sadness and emptiness. Although Kyle seemed upset about our father's worsening health, I couldn't shake the feeling that he had been waiting for this moment. This thought made me very sad and angry. After our father died, Kyle inherited most of our father's large fortune. Even though he was just a son-in-law, he had the same rights to the inheritance as Lauren and me. According to my father's will, he got most of the shares of the company and a lot of wealth. This unexpected turn of events left me speechless. Even though I was my father's biological child, I had thought the inheritance would be split fairly among the three of us. But instead, Kyle got almost everything. All I received was an old mini truck that my father once loved. In public, Kyle seemed surprised, but alone with me, he laughed and said, "You came all the way from the city to this small town, took care of him day and night, and all you got is this little truck, huh? What an ironic end. Now the company is mine, and you're left with just this mini truck as your inheritance. It's like a comedy." As he left the room with a smirk, I felt empty inside, holding the mini truck keys tightly. The cold metal made me face the harsh reality. My family tried to cheer me up. "Keep your head up." He had his reasons. He didn't mean to upset you. That truck was something Dad always loved. It was his favorite vehicle. He surely cared about you. Despite their kind words, I was too hurt to respond. I knew that what you inherit doesn't measure a father's love. But the fact that Kyle, who seemed to be waiting for my father to die, got almost everything was deeply insulting. It wasn't about the money. It was the pain of seeing my father's hard work go to such a man. I felt powerless to change the situation. Clutching the truck key, I decided to take care of the mini truck, the only thing my father left me. It seemed to hold a deeper meaning. I hoped that cleaning the truck might help me sort out my feelings. I used a hose to carefully wash the truck and then sat in the driver's seat where my father used to sit. Starting the engine, I noticed something unusual on the navigation system. It was displaying a single thick blue route instead of just showing my location. "That's odd. Why is there a destination set on the navigation system?" I wondered. This usually only happens when a specific road is being followed. When I checked the destination on the screen, it showed only coordinates, not a specific place. It would take about an hour's drive. Wanting to go for a drive in the mini truck, I didn't think too much about it. I put the truck in first gear and left the house. An hour later, during the pleasant drive, I arrived at what seemed like a home. It was a surprise. In front of me was a small, modest house, quite different from the larger homes in my hometown. It felt warm and inviting. The area was quiet, and I couldn't see or hear anyone else around. I got out of the truck and stood in front of the house, feeling a bit confused. There were no signs to indicate what this place was, but it seemed the navigation system had brought me here for a reason. With some hesitation, I rang the doorbell. As the door slowly opened, the person I saw was the last one I expected. "My mom? I've been waiting, Jack. Come in, dear," she said. "Why are you here, Mom? And how come this place was set in Dad's navigation system?" I asked. "I will explain everything, but first come inside and relax," she replied. Following her inside, I found the interior simple yet cozy, with just the essentials. My mom made some tea and started to explain in a calm voice. "Actually, this was your father's secret hideout." A hideout. I was surprised. I've never heard about Dad having a place like this. "This place is our secret spot. We came here when we needed our own space or when we wanted some peace and quiet. If we ever had a small argument, our rule was to come here to cool off." "You didn't know about it, did you?" she continued. "No, I didn't," I replied, still trying to absorb this new information. "And this," she said, handing me a brown envelope. "This is something your father wanted you to have." The envelope was slightly bulging, as if something important was packed inside. I decided to read the letter addressed to me. "Jack, I have caused you a lot of trouble and made you endure unbearable hardships over the years. I am truly sorry from the bottom of my heart." The letter began. It was filled with my father's reflections on his past mistakes and his deep gratitude toward me. He wrote, "Your mother often tells me that it was your choice to leave home, and a son has the right to choose his own path in life. We are both stubborn, but when you came back after I fell ill, it was a wonderful surprise for me. Although I couldn't express it well because I'm not good at showing my feelings, I am deeply grateful to you for supporting and taking care of the family." This was the first time I heard such heartfelt words from my father, and it made me very emotional. The letter also mentioned Kyle. To tell the truth, my distrust towards Kyle grew over time. He's good with words and makes people feel comfortable, but I could see his true nature. I suspected his sneaky behavior around the house was his way of trying to claim ownership. I was too tired from work and taking care of you all to notice his cunning actions. But now, knowing Kyle as I do, I believe these suspicions were correct. The letter continued, "I have no intention of giving the company to you, but if something unexpected happens, I have left a significant amount of money with your mother. This is to ensure that you and Lauren will not be in need. Please accept it. After finishing the letter, I looked up at my mother. She said nothing but looked at the brown envelope. I hesitated, then reached for it and checked its contents, confirming everything was in my mother's name. She began to speak firmly. If I transfer the accounts to you and Lauren's names, it would be considered a gift under tax laws. If it's mentioned in the will, Kyle might try to take it. Your father gave this money to me secretly while he was still alive to avoid Kyle's interference. Now I want to give it to you and Lauren as a living gift. She explained this to me, but I was still trying to understand the full impact. The amount written in the account book she showed me was huge, unlike anything I could have imagined. I had never seen so much money before. It meant a lot to me that my dad had left this for me, not because of the amount, but because it showed he really cared about me, not just Kyle, who was seen as his successor. This touched me deeply. We didn't often share deep emotional words, but I knew he always cared deeply for us. I want everything I entrusted to your mother to be passed on to you as a thank you for all the gifts you've given me, and for that, I am truly grateful, he wrote. Before I knew it, tears were streaming down my face. I couldn't hold back my emotions. For a long time, I felt that my father never really understood me, but I was completely wrong. He always understood and valued me. That's probably why he trusted me with that old mini truck, knowing I would value it and use it well. Mom, I really wish I could have done more for Dad, I said, feeling deep regret. But my mother comforted me with a gentle smile. She seemed to understand the regret I felt, saying, "It's natural to think you could have done more when mourning a parent. But you brought your father great joy and gave him so much love. You were his greatest pride." Hearing her words made me cry again. They also inspired me to make a firm decision. I wouldn't let the company my father built fall into the hands of someone like Kyle, who had wished for his death. I decided to quietly resist and make a careful plan without letting Kyle know I had acquired a significant fortune. The first step was to contact the corporate executives my father had trusted to build a foundation for their support. They agreed to help, supporting my desire to carry on my father's legacy. The reactions made it clear that my father had never spoken poorly of me. Meanwhile, my mother and sister acted soothingly during the letter reading, keeping Kyle's attention off me. They continued to act the same way in front of Kyle, which made him think he had succeeded and looked down on me with arrogance. "Hey, you, abandoned by your father and left a poor man, still intend to stay in this house. I'm the new president now. Admit your defeat and go back home." Kyle would say these words dismissively, waving his hand as if he were shooing away a small fly. Since becoming CEO, Kyle's arrogant attitude created a tense atmosphere in the company. Despite his high position, he ignored his duties and became rude to his staff. This caused a lot of problems, and many skilled employees were left unhappy with his leadership. Kyle didn't question his approach and remained overly confident. "Those who can't grasp my superior vision might as well quit immediately," he would say in public, making decisions without listening to anyone else. As problems in the company increased, Kyle enjoyed spending money and living lavishly, while his passion for the business seemed to disappear. When I first met him, he seemed like a great person. He was skilled, and even my dad liked him. How had he changed so much? Lauren cried every night, hiding her tears from the children. I couldn't just watch the company fall apart. I was quietly planning my next move. The day came when I acted. I left home early and waited at the office for Kyle. When he walked into the president's office, he was shocked to see me sitting there. "What the hell are you doing? Why are you sitting there? Get this person out of here," he demanded. "The one who should be leaving is you," I replied calmly. "What are you talking about? Have you lost your mind?" Kyle looked at me as if I was an annoying insect. "Using the assets our father left us, I had bought the majority of the company's shares. An extraordinary general meeting of shareholders was held, and you were officially removed as president, Kyle. I'm sorry to say, but you are no longer the president of this company." "Wait just a minute," he stammered, confused and repeating words that made no sense. "Don't you understand? I now control 2/3 of this company's shares. You thought the inheritance was just an old mini truck, but that truck turned into money in an unexpected way." Kyle tried to dig into details about the hideaway, but I avoided his questions and changed the subject, which only made him more upset. "The game is over. Leave this place immediately," I told him calmly and handed him several documents. As Kyle looked through them, his face went white. "What is this?" he asked. "These are the minutes from the extraordinary general meeting of shareholders, and this other document is your dismissal notice," I explained. Kyle became very angry, crumpled the papers in his hands, and shouted, "You think this will hold up? I'll take legal action." "Go ahead with legal action. We have good reasons for our actions," I responded calmly. "What reasons?" You just been after the old man's wealth and this company from the start. It's nothing but jealousy," Kyle accused. "Let me ask you directly, Kyle. Have you been using company assets for personal use and signing leasing contracts for your own benefit?" I asked. "What if I have? What's it to you?" Kyle replied, his face turning pale with shock. I kept my gaze fixed on him and continued, "You should have been more aware of your responsibilities. Did you become complacent when you thought you controlled everything?" I had been gathering information about Kyle's actions from the company's executives. After our father passed away, Kyle became more arrogant. He used to at least pretend to respect others, but as president, he began to shift his work onto others and even fell asleep in his office. This attitude caused many loyal employees who respected my father to leave, frustrated by his behavior. Kyle, upset by the situation, doubted my ability to manage, emphasizing that it was impossible for me to fulfill the role of a manager. "You have never worked a day in this company. Think about it. How can someone with no experience in running the company become president? It's impossible to trust management to someone like you," Kyle argued. "You're absolutely right," I agreed. "I have no intention of becoming the president of this company. My sitting in this chair is just a symbolic message to you. In fact, a new president has already been elected by a different board of directors and is already carrying out their duties." Kyle was stunned. He stood there with his mouth open and his eyes wide, shocked by the turn of events. He had been sure that I was after the presidency and had schemed to replace him. "As I've said many times, I'm not after the president's position. My only goal is to honor my father and protect the company he spent his life building," I explained. "Who would believe such fancy talk?" Kyle retorted. He thought I only cared about the wealth and status that came from our father, not his true worth. After my reply, Kyle trembled with anger for a moment, but then composed himself. "Do you think this is over and you can just enjoy it?" he scoffed and then stormed out of the president's office. That night, something unexpected happened. Lauren threw divorce papers at Kyle, ending their marriage. This was a result of his misconduct at the company and his eventual firing. The new president was chosen from among the directors who respected my father and were determined to protect what he built. I felt the company should be led by someone who would continue my father's legacy, a sentiment my mother and sister supported. As I coordinated Kyle's dismissal with the lawyers, Lauren was preparing for the divorce. On the day she mentioned divorce, her hurt voice filled the house with a heavy atmosphere. "Why do you turn away from me now? Is it because I've lost the title of president and you've lost interest in me?" Kyle asked. Maintaining her calm but firm demeanor, Lauren replied, "There's no point in talking about betrayal. You were the one who betrayed our relationship from the start. Your love was not for me but for the title of the president's daughter. You neglected our home, didn't help raise our children, showed no respect to our sick father, and in the end, you tried to take everything from our father for yourself. Now it's time for you to face the consequences." Kyle had no response to Lauren's words. She had endured a lot, worrying about her children's futures and the fate of the company, but thankfully, the inheritance from our father gave her a solid financial base to raise her children. After the divorce, we planned to live a peaceful life away from conflict with our mother and sister. Our only concern was the possibility of retaliation from Kyle, but he was now out of funds. He had lost a lot of money to an investment scam and was even in debt. This scam involved the man pretending to be from a brokerage firm who was actually a fraudster. Kyle was played by convincing words, losing a significant amount. This situation showed how people could exploit those who suddenly have a lot of money. Now Kyle was suffering the financial consequences of his actions. Meanwhile, I spent fulfilling days taking care of my mother. I enjoyed a peaceful, comfortable life, continuing my work at the tutoring school. My mother and I also took great joy in caring for my nephew Peter, who was very fond of us. His presence added happiness to our daily lives. "When I grow up, I'm going to be a president like Grandpa," Peter declared, his words filled with the innocence of childhood dreams. This brought smiles to our faces and even made my mother tear up with emotion. Lauren and I exchanged knowing looks, our smiles reflecting warmth and understanding. "You might say it now, but I wouldn't be surprised if you want to become a teacher when you're in college," I told him gently, reflecting on similar past statements, which made everyone laugh. But I'm not very good at studying, so maybe I won't make a good teacher, he said seriously, furrowing his brow. His earnestness made this even more endearing and prompted more laughter, this time filled with affection. In that moment, filled with an overwhelming sense of happiness, we realized we were truly living in the present, enjoying our family unity, and ready to face whatever the future might bring. Hello everyone, my name is Tina. For a while now, my mother-in-law, Hannah, has been a real thorn in my side. It wasn't until I gave my husband, Eric, an ultimatum that her toxic presence was finally removed from our lives. I thought I'd share this story because I know you'd enjoy the karma. Eric and I met in college. We had the perfect whirlwind romance that's common in college. He was a senior, and I was a freshman. We got acquainted at a party, and the rest is history. I won't bore you with the details of my love life, but after dating for 4 years, we finally decided to get engaged. We waited a while before getting married, mostly because of Hannah. You see, Hannah and my dad went to college together. She was in love with him and wanted to date him, but Dad ended up falling for my mom and marrying her instead. When Hannah first saw me, she said, "Eric, how can you do this to me? You're dating this witch. You know her mom is a homewrecker." "Mom, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Tina is a great person. Why would you say things like this? Her mom destroyed my first love. I should have married Ruby's dad. Nina stole him from me. She's a cheap woman, and I'm sure Tina is no better." "Don't talk about my mother like that. She's done nothing to you. My father only dated my mom and no one else." "Yes, he would have dated me if your witch mother hadn't tricked him away. Your mother is a homewrecker." I was appalled by Hannah's words. Yes, my dad did know Hannah. But they never dated. They weren't even friends. My dad said they were batchmates and nothing more. He knew about Eric and Hannah before he passed away after I graduated. He also warned me that Hannah was a little crazy, but I didn't take his warning seriously. Now I could see that he didn't exaggerate. After hearing Hannah attack me and my mom, I decided to cut the visit short. I told Eric that I was leaving. He looked pissed but didn't follow me out. I went home and waited for Eric to return. When he finally came back, he said, "What the hell is wrong with you, Tina? Why did you leave so abruptly? That was extremely rude. You insulted my mom by leaving early." "Excuse me? Are you deaf, Eric? Did you not hear how your mom kept insulting me and my mom? You still expected me to stay there." My mom didn't lie about anything. She was just venting and taking out her frustrations. She's not wrong, though. Your mom did steal your dad from my mom. It's natural for her to feel sad. That was years ago, Eric. How can you say my mom stole my dad? My dad told me about Hannah. She wasn't even a friend. Your mother is hung up on the past for no reason. It doesn't matter. The thing is, my mom talked about your dad a lot. It breaks my heart to see her this sad. Now that I see my mother in distress, I don't want your mother around. I can't play in-laws with Nina knowing that she broke my mom's heart. You have to be kidding me. My mom is not responsible for destroying whatever made-up relationship Hannah had in her mind. We fought for days on this topic. Eric didn't even want my mom at our wedding. It was insane. He kept saying that my mom's presence would upset Hannah. In fact, he also said that Hannah was pressuring him not to marry me. I couldn't understand why Eric was taking his mom's side over this stupid issue. Hannah was acting like an unreasonable person, and I knew she needed professional help to get over my dad. Hannah was super manipulative and had a strong influence on Eric. Since she was a single mother, Eric tended to take her side over everyone else. Hannah never liked me. I tried my best to extend an olive branch every time I could. However, she rejected me every time and found ways to humiliate me and my family. At our rehearsal dinner, there was a huge fiasco between my mom and Hannah. So far, we have been able to keep Hannah and Nina from meeting, but the rehearsal was inevitable, and so was their meeting. Eric tried to stop my mom from attending. He said, "Why can't your mom skip the rehearsal, Tina? She doesn't need to be there anyway. You know my mom will be there. I don't think Nina should come." Why the hell would I ask my mom to skip the rehearsal? She has done nothing wrong. Hannah is the one who is still obsessed with the past. Look, I don't care if Nina is innocent. I just know that my mom has trouble being around her. It's my wedding, and I don't want my mom to be unhappy. She's the only one I have. This is also my wedding, Eric. Just because I have a sister doesn't mean my mother has become disposable. You know I am close to her. After even more arguing, I put my foot down. There was no way my mother was getting uninvited from the wedding or rehearsal. I had accommodated Hannah and her stupid demands for long enough. However, nothing prepared me for what happened during our rehearsal. Hannah straight up approached my mom and started yelling at her. "You are that witch who destroyed my life. How dare you mess up my life?" "What are you talking about, Hannah? I didn't do anything to you. If this is about my husband, you two were not even in a relationship. I don't know why you're blaming me because he fell for me. He would have been mine if you hadn't interfered. I would have nabbed him. You are nothing but a homewrecker first. You took him away and then tracked him with a child. Now your witch daughter is trying to steal my son. Hannah, you are insane. I know you kept tabs on me and my husband. We never confronted you because we didn't want trouble. Hell, I didn't even stop my daughter when she told us about Eric. Eric and Tina are happy together, Hannah. Let's not ruin their day." Hannah wouldn't listen. She kept shouting at my mom and me, calling us all sorts of names. Some of them downright disgusting. I won't repeat them here. You can imagine. The guests were extremely uncomfortable, and most of them were appalled by Hannah's reaction, which only enraged her further. Eric, incredibly, still took his mother's side. After the party was over, we went home, and an argument ensued. Eric was furious at my mom for everything. "Sue, this is why I didn't want Nina around. Look how she destroyed our wedding. How can you still blame my mom, Eric? This is ridiculous. Hannah made a huge scene today. She started it, and my mom was way too soft on her. Your mom shouldn't have come to the rehearsal. She has no regard for my mom's feelings. I no longer want her in my life. I don't want a relationship with her ever. Don't even talk to me about her, and I don't want her at my house frequently." "Fine then, Eric. If you don't want a relationship with her, that's fine. But I'm not abandoning my mom for nothing." After our arguments, I had serious doubts about marrying him. Eric was a great boyfriend and fiancé, and between the two of us, happiness and love were abundant. This was the only problem plaguing us. I talked to my mom about my fears, and I wasn't sure about continuing with the wedding. "Mom, I think I should postpone the wedding. Eric's behavior is giving me lots of doubts. He has been very unfair towards you, all because of his mom." "Tina, Eric loves you a lot. I would never forgive myself if I were the reason for your breakup. If you love and care for him, and he does the same, these things won't come between you." "But Mom, I can't have him insulting you every time. It breaks my heart to know he won't have a relationship with you." "It's okay, Tina. It's natural for Eric to side with Hannah. She is his mom. As for me, I'm thinking about going back to my hometown in another country. I've been lonely without your father, and you're getting married now. I'll be away and won't be a problem for your relationship. It'll be the best solution for all of us." Yes, my mother decided to move to another country so I could be happy. I can't stop praising this woman. She's literally the best mom ever. I begged her to stay, but she said she needed to be with her extended family. Dad's passing had affected her a lot. In the end, I let her go because I didn't want her to feel lonely. Eric never found out about my mom leaving. He didn't know for another 3 years after our wedding. It wasn't until Hannah decided to try and nuke our marriage. Before Mom left, I started visiting her very often. She was around for 1 month after I got married, and I wanted to spend as much time with her as possible. I was pissed at Eric, so I never told him about Mom's decision to leave. Instead, I just told him I was visiting her. Eric wasn't happy with my frequent visits, even though I did it when he wasn't home. Hannah also put ideas into his head that I was manipulating him. After my mom left, I continued visiting her place, mostly to take care of the house and the garden she had lovingly built. However, Hannah was convinced that I was conspiring with my mom against Eric and her, so she did something horrible. One day while I was out grocery shopping, Eric called me. He sounded very angry, which made me anxious. "Why is your mother at our home for the 7th time this month? This is getting ridiculous, Tina. I told you I don't want that woman in my house. I overlooked the first few times because I didn't want to deprive you of your mother, but now this is becoming too much." "What the hell are you talking about, Eric? My mom hasn't been coming over at all. I'm not even at the house right now. Are you out of your mind?" "Don't lie to me, Tina. I know she's been over recently. Mom has told me everything. She saw Nina's car in the driveway." "You have to be kidding me, Eric. Your mom must have mixed things up. My mom is in a different country. She hasn't been here for over 3 years. She moved just after our wedding. That is impossible. I would have known if she had moved. Stop protecting your mother every time, Eric. I didn't tell you because you didn't want to hear about my mom. She moved because she didn't want to come between us. How can you accuse me or my mom of going behind your back? But mom said she has been over. What is going on? I'm confused now. Even the neighbor said she saw a lady coming over. Why don't you come home so that we can see the CCTV footage? That will answer all our questions. If someone has been coming over, they are trespassing, and this is a serious problem. Eric quickly hung up the phone and agreed to come straight away. I too left my doctor's appointment and headed straight home. When we reached home, we saw that someone had indeed been in the house. That immediately gave me goosebumps. When we finally pulled up the CCTV footage, we were shocked. It turns out Hannah was the one trespassing into the house. We never even gave her a key, and we had no idea how she got access. Eric and I were furious. We immediately called Hannah and told her to come over. When she did, we confronted her. Why the hell have you been coming to our house when it is empty? Where did you even get a key? Mom, what is going on here? You said Nina has been coming over to meet with Tina. Yeah, of course, she is, Eric. Your wife has been going behind your back and meeting with that homewrecker. Mom, why the hell are you lying? We know it was you. Damn it. Why would you lie to us? I'm not lying to you, Eric. I saw her with my own eyes. Your witch of a wife is brainwashing you. Hannah, stop blaming me and Mom for everything. Mom hasn't even been in this country for 3 years. Besides, I guess you didn't know that we have CCTVs around our house. We saw you come in when we were gone. Hearing this, Hannah turned extremely pale. The color drained from her face. If I wasn't so concerned about our safety, I would have laughed at her expression, but I was too anxious to do that. Eric was also stunned and looked at Hannah in disbelief. Mom, tell me what I'm seeing here. How the hell did you even find a key? Well, I made one for you. Since your witch of a wife wouldn't give me a key, I had to do this. You can't blame me for this. Mom, you stole our keys to make a copy from them? Are you insane? It was both mine and Tina's decision not to give you a key. This is our house, and we deserve some privacy. You basically committed a felony, Mom. You say that to me. I am your mom, and I should have access to your house. First of all, Hannah, no. Just no. You don't deserve to breach our privacy. Secondly, why did you drag my mom into this? She is innocent. I'm sure you've been letting your mom come here. I wanted to warn my son. Sooner or later, it would have happened. Your mom stole my man, and now you're stealing my son. I can't let that happen. Mom, stop it. I've tried very hard to be on your side, but you have crossed the line. I don't think I can trust you after this, Eric said, his voice full of disappointment. This is all Tina's fault, Eric. You shouldn't have married her. She's taking you away from me. I had to do this to make you see some reason, Hannah retorted. By that time, I was done with Hannah. I had put up with her insults for far too long. She kept insulting me and my mom, but I never retaliated. I even limited contact with my mom to please Eric and Hannah. But now, I couldn't hold back any longer. I tore into Hannah and Eric. I have had enough of you insulting my mom, Hannah. I won't put up with this anymore. Eric, I know you love your mom, but she has crossed the line. If you continue to stay in contact with her, I will leave. There is no way I'm putting up with her behavior any longer. I am done. Tina, you don't have to leave. I have seen enough already. Mom, just leave and don't contact us again. I will be calling the police to report you for trespassing and making a key without our permission. I'm done with you. No, Eric, you can't do this to me. How can you take Tana's side after everything? She and her mom want to destroy me. Don't let them do this. That's it, Mom. Leave my house immediately. I don't want to see you again. Don't contact us. I'll put a restraining order against you. Hannah wouldn't listen. She kept throwing tantrums and even tried to attack me. That's when Eric called the police, and they arrested her. We submitted the CCTV footage and had the neighbor confirm that they saw Hannah entering our house. Hannah was taken away in cuffs. When the police finally left with her, Eric turned to me and said, Tina, I have absolutely no words to tell you how much I messed up. I'm so sorry. I never should have prioritized my mom over yours. I knew she was being unreasonable, but I wanted to support her. I had no idea she would do something like this. Eric, things can't go on like this anymore. My mom and I have suffered enough. It has to end somewhere. You let your mom attack me and my mom all the time, and we never protested. My mom even left the country to save me from having to choose. I know, Tina. I'm so sorry for everything. I will apologize to Nina as well. She didn't deserve this treatment. I take full responsibility for making things this way, and don't worry, I won't let Mom get away with this. True to his word, Eric called my mom and apologized. He was worried that she wouldn't speak to him, but she agreed to hear him out. Eric said, "I'm so sorry for treating you badly, Nina. I know you didn't deserve this. Today's events just opened my eyes to how horrible and manipulative my mom can be. It's okay, Eric. I don't blame you. It's natural for you to take your mom's side. I know you value your family a lot, which is why I never opposed Tina marriage to you. You have always been patient with me. You were also my family, and I failed to be there for you. Please forgive me. Will you come back? I promise it won't be a problem anymore." "No, Eric. I've gotten quite comfortable here. I don't want to come back. I'll visit, but I think I am happier here. Don't blame yourself for this. Just make sure you protect my daughter and take care of her. That's all I want." Eric was even more devastated by my mom's words. He finally understood how badly he had messed up. He also grew a newfound respect for my mom, which made me happy to see that things would finally change. As for Hannah, Eric and I refused to withdraw our case or even grant her bail. Some relatives did call us to take her side. However, they quickly changed their minds once we told them everything. Apparently, Hannah had cooked up a story that wasn't true at all, so they didn't know what had really happened. One aunt did bail her out but told her never to call her again. The police also told her to stay away from us. Hannah didn't listen to the police. She kept approaching us and even showed up at Eric's work and our house. When the harassment didn't stop, we filed restraining orders against her. That finally made her stop visiting. From what our extended family told us, Hannah had lost her job due to the police report. She was begging for money and showing up at everyone's house for help. No one was willing to help her unless she joined therapy. They even offered to pay for it, but Hannah refused their offer, so they shut the door in her face. Last I heard, she was struggling to find a job and was about to lose her house. Eric still finds it difficult to deal with the fiasco. He joined therapy, where he realized just how narcissistic Hannah was. Her manipulative ways had also affected him mentally, and he is still in recovery. He has made good progress and is slowly learning to identify the abusive behaviors of Hannah. So far, he has absolutely no intentions of ever seeing her again. Hello everyone, I'm Lana. I must be one of the oldest people here sharing a story. There's a first time for everything. This story is being written by Riley, who was married to my grandson Joe. My late husband Matt and I raised Joe since he was a toddler after his parents died in a tragic car accident. We were the only ones left to care for him. We watched him grow and supported him in every way possible to ensure his success in life. When Joe showed up with Riley and told us they had gotten married, Matt and I were shocked. We were hurt that they had eloped right out of high school. Riley's parents had disowned her because of the wedding, so Joe brought her to our house. We took them both in and promised to help them out. Joe went to college while Riley stayed behind and took care of us. Eventually, Joe got a great job and started achieving his goals. We were proud of him, but things were about to take a turn for the worse. Shortly after Joe landed a high-level job in a cutthroat industry, he and Riley were even planning to have a child. However, a few months later, Riley arrived crying on our doorstep. She was a mess, and we didn't know what to do. When she came in, I asked, "What is going on, Riley? You look horrible. Why are you crying so much? You need to tell us what happened. You're starting to scare us." "I don't know what to say, guys. Joe has left me. He's gone." "What are you talking about, Riley?" I asked. "I'm telling you the truth, Matt. Joe is gone, and so is his stuff. He left a note saying he wants to divorce me and start a new life. He doesn't love me anymore." Riley went into a sobbing fit while Matt and I tried to wrap our heads around what we had just heard. It was bizarre and hard to believe. Joe had been growing distant from all of us, and we were planning to talk to him about it. But before we could, Riley arrived at our doorstep. Matt and I calmed Riley down and decided to talk to Joe separately. We immediately called him, praying that this was just a misunderstanding. When he picked up, Matt nervously said, "Where are you, Joe?" "I just found your wife crying on our doorstep. She's saying you have abandoned her. What's going on? Tell me this isn't true." "It's not a joke, guys. I've left her for good. Riley and I are done." Joe's voice was serious, and it was clear he wasn't joking. Matt and I were stunned. We had always thought they were happy. Joe had often said he married the love of his life. "I couldn't imagine you would do this to her." "You can't be serious, Joe. Riley is your wife. You can't just up and leave for no reason." "I haven't left without any reason, Grandma. I told her in detail how I no longer love her." "What happened, Joe? Why did your feelings suddenly change? You need to tell us everything so we can understand." "I can tell you, but I don't think you'll get it." "We will try, Joe. We love you, and we want to know what's wrong. We can't let you just abandon your wife without knowing the real reason. Tell us and let us think of a solution." "Look, I don't need your permission to do what I want, but if you're so interested in knowing the truth, I'll tell you. Now that I have a great job, I can't have an average girl like Riley as my wife anymore." Matt and I were stunned into silence. We couldn't believe our little grandson Joe had turned into such a vile and shallow person. We didn't raise him to abandon people or to think this way. His words made us both very angry. "What is this nonsense, Joe? You are being downright mean and delusional. Riley is a great girl, and you are insulting her. This is not how a marriage works. Riley loves you, and you love her. That's what's most important." "That's not true. I want a better wife because I could have a better one. And guess what? I already found someone who's way better than Riley. My new girlfriend is more beautiful and successful. They don't even compare." The conversation kept getting worse with every sentence Joe said. Matt and I were getting angrier. Joe was being extremely nonchalant and admitted he had an affair. Still Matt and I knew we had to find out more about what happened. Knowing the whole truth was important for us and for Riley. "Are you telling us that you had an affair, Joe, and you're leaving Riley to be with your mistress? Is that what you're saying? Call it whatever you want. I don't care what name you give to our relationship. The fact is, I am in love with my new girlfriend, and she is everything to me now." "What about Riley, Joe? She was everything to you too. That's what you told us when you asked for our help and blessing to get married." "I was young and stupid, Grandpa. I really should have waited before settling for an average girl. Thank God I realized my mistake before having kids with her. I would have been stuck with her for life." "I don't believe this, Joe. You're being so nonchalant about all of this. You've made a huge mistake and crossed a major boundary by cheating on your wife. You've disappointed us, Joe." "Well, I don't care. I'm happy with my new woman, so you should be happy for me too. She made me realize that I was wasting my time with an insignificant woman. She was right. She is so much better than Riley." Matt was getting very angry with Joe, and this last comment pushed him over the edge. He despised cheaters as much as I did. Joe might have been our grandson, but he was acting like a different person. He expected us to accept his new life and not hold him accountable for his actions. But we weren't willing to do that. In his anger, Matt said, "No, absolutely not, Joe. We will not be happy about what you've done, and we will never accept your new life." I had to agree with Matt. "Joe, from your words, it's clear that this woman knew you were a married man, so she wasn't in the dark about what she was doing. This is just plain wrong, and we will never accept a girl like that." "Very well then," Joe replied. "This makes things much better. My new girlfriend doesn't want me to be so close to you guys anyway. She thinks you try to control me and that I will never reach my full potential if I keep listening to you." Looks like she was right. I winced when Joe said that. The more he talked, the further away I felt from him. I used to see the essence of my son in Joe, but the man on the phone didn't even feel like he was related to me. Joe was so influenced by his new girlfriend that he was ready to cut us off for her. He actually said those words out loud, choosing this girl over the people who raised him. Tears welled up in my eyes from the sheer betrayal. I said in a shaky voice, "You will abandon us for this woman too." "How can you even say that, Joe?" "I'm serious about this, Grandma. Lana has been right about everything. If you can't even be happy for me, you don't deserve to be in my life." "Is that a threat, Joe? If we don't forgive you for your nonsense and accept your new girlfriend, will you cut us off?" "Yes, I actually will do that. Since you want to take Riley's side so badly, let her be your grandchild instead of me." I'm done. We raised you for 20 years, and this is how you repay us? We did our best and sacrificed a lot to make sure you were taken care of. Now we know that it was all in vain. You have turned into an absolute monster." Those were some of the last words Matt spoke to Joe. The conversation that followed is not worth mentioning. There was a lot of back and forth, and Joe ended up calling us some awful things. I knew he was hurt that we didn't accept his choices right away. But what option did we have? We weren't going to blindly support Joe's decisions just because he is our grandson. He was behaving like a very cruel person and putting this new girl above everyone else. He also showed no remorse for the wrongs he had done. It absolutely broke our hearts when Matt and I finally ended our conversation with Joe. We knew one thing: Joe was beyond help now. He was adamant about cutting us off if we didn't accept his new life. He was forcing us to do something we didn't want to do. In the end, before we could even make a decision, our grandson cut us off for good. He blocked us everywhere, effectively severing all connections. Joe and Riley ended up getting a divorce after Joe didn't come back for a full year. Riley was a mess and relied on me and my husband for emotional support. We invited her into our home because she was devastated by what Joe did to her. Matt and I never regretted the decision to make Riley a part of our family. When our own grandson abandoned us, Riley was there. After she got back on her feet and became emotionally strong, she became our rock. Joe didn't talk to us for 5 years, not a single word. We never reached out because it was never our decision to cut him off. Matt and I miss our grandson, I won't lie about that. However, his betrayal cut deep and left us bleeding inside. My husband never got to see or talk to Joe again. He died before Joe reached out to us. When Matt passed away, I didn't know whether to invite Joe to the funeral. I was a broken mess and wanted my grandson there. It was Riley who convinced me to call him. She said, "Listen to me, Lana. I know you miss your grandson. Go and call him, tell him what happened, and ask him to come to the funeral." I don't know, Riley. I still haven't forgiven him for what he did. It was a long time ago, Lana. It's okay if you don't want to forgive him, but I think you will always feel guilty and have regrets if you don't try once. Don't you think inviting him to the funeral will be a good idea? I feel really unsure, Riley. You and Matt raised Joe almost like your own child, Lana. As a parent, you could give him this one chance to grieve someone he loves. Joe loved you too. Maybe this time you will finally see how wrong he was to cut you off. Riley's words gave me some hope. She was right. I didn't want to regret not calling Joe to the funeral. Maybe he still loved us and would want to pay his respects to his grandpa one last time, even if he was too prideful to talk to us. It was my duty to reach out to him. Besides, Riley had moved on with a great man, and I was ready to try and mend the bridges with Joe too. So I said to Riley, "Okay, Riley, I will invite Joe to the funeral, but he has blocked me everywhere. I don't have his contact anymore. I don't know how to reach him." "Don't worry, Lana. He never blocked me on social media. I can reach out to him on your behalf. You can dictate the message and I'll type it out and send it to him." "That sounds great, Riley. I hope you're right about this. I don't want to have any regrets if Joe wants to pay his final respects to his grandfather." Riley excitedly sent the text that I dictated to her. I was starting to have some hope after Riley talked to me about possibly moving on from the incident. She didn't like that Joe had boycotted us and we lost our bond with him. Sometimes she felt guilty, although none of this was her fault. She never told us not to support Joe's decision, and she didn't tell Joe to block us or leave us. Despite what happened in the past and the fact that Joe never reached out again, I was willing to take the chance. I was ready to have some closure and maybe find it in my heart to forgive him. My hopes were short-lived. The first indication came when we found out that Joe had received and seen the message, but he never replied. We had provided all the details of the funeral, so we thought maybe he didn't need more information and might still show up. Riley and I held onto a sliver of hope that he would turn up at the funeral. I was willing to extend an olive branch just to see if he had changed a little. Believe me, I really wanted Joe and me to have a relationship despite everything. I was looking forward to seeing him, but my hopes were in vain. The funeral came and went. It was a beautiful day with the sun shining brightly, a day Matt would have liked. The service was very emotional but went well. Riley held me throughout the entire time. Joe never showed up. I kept looking at the door, hoping he would arrive any minute. When I went home, the realization hit me hard. Joe hadn't bothered to show up at Matt's funeral. I can't tell you how heartbroken I was. It sealed my resolve about the decision I had left to make. A day after the funeral, Matt's will was to be read. Riley and I were patiently waiting for Matt's estate lawyer to arrive. The first person to walk through the door wasn't our lawyer, it was Joe. I was dumbfounded to see him nonchalantly walk into the house with complete disregard. I said, "What are you doing here, Joe?" "What do you think I'm doing here? I heard that you're supposed to read the will today. What does it have to do with you? I'm your only grandson, in case you've forgotten. I've come to take my rightful inheritance from Grandpa." I was stunned by what Joe said. Riley was equally surprised, and his words shocked her even more. I wasn't hurt anymore. I was fuming with rage. I looked Joe straight in the eye and said, "You have some nerve showing up after 5 years and straight up demanding money. You didn't even come to Matt's funeral. Did you have any respect for your grandfather, Joe? Oh, stop the theatrics right now. There was no need for me to show up at the funeral. What would I have said anyway? It's not like I've come to reestablish anything. I've just come for my rightful inheritance. What makes you think you are entitled to anything after you abandoned us for 5 years? I'm not here to entertain your stupid questions, Grandma. Just call the lawyer and tell him to be here soon. I don't have much time." Joe's coldness made my heart boil. I was furious and wanted to throw him out immediately, but I decided to teach him a good lesson instead. I picked up my phone and told our lawyer to come over immediately. He was already on his way and arrived within minutes. Joe didn't bother with small talk and ignored Riley completely. When the lawyer arrived, Joe looked excited. However, my lawyer was confused and said, "Why is Joe here? This is a private will reading. He doesn't need to be here." Joe replied, "I'm here to get my inheritance from Matt's estate. I'm his sole heir." The lawyer said, "That's ridiculous. I never called Joe for the reading. He doesn't need to be here at all." "What? Of course I needed to be here. I'm the sole heir of Matt's estate. I know that already." "I don't know who told you that, but you are mistaken, Joe. You are not the sole heir of Matt's estate. In fact, you were not even mentioned in the will. I don't believe a word you're saying. I'm definitely included in the will. I'm his grandson and his only heir. Why wouldn't I be mentioned?" While Joe raged with confusion, I was enjoying watching him squirm. He deserved it for what he did to us. As Joe acted all shocked, I decided to serve him some cold, hard revenge. I said, "Oh, Joe, you are a dense man. You want to know why you haven't been named in the will? Well, it's because Matt disinherited you. No, that's not possible. He wouldn't do that to me. I'm his blood, his only surviving heir. He would never disinherit me. Do you think we believe in that old-fashioned stuff? Matt wanted to leave his inheritance to someone who deserved it, not just someone with his blood. This can't be happening. I am the rightful heir. How could he leave his estate to anyone else? If he disinherited me, who got my share of the inheritance?" "You really want to know?" Matt gave it to Riley. Joe and Riley were both stunned. They looked at the lawyer for confirmation, and he simply nodded. It came as a shock to them, but not to me. Matt and I had jointly decided to cut Joe off and give everything to Riley. Joe couldn't accept this. He turned pale and said, "This has to be a joke. Why would he leave everything to Riley? This is not fair." "Then what is fair, Joe? Do you really think Matt would leave his hard-earned assets to a grandson who abandoned him and didn't even bother to show up at the funeral? I'm his blood. Matt wouldn't do that to me. Believe me, Joe, he was perfectly happy making this decision. If you think I'm tricking you, the lawyer will show you the will." "How could you let him do this, Grandma?" "It was an easy decision, Joe. We raised you, but you only managed to stab us in the back and abandon us. Riley was here for us, and she is the rightful heir to our estate. I won't be here for long, so you better remember this. I will also disinherit you and leave everything to Riley. You will never get another cent from me, and you will pay for abandoning us." I vividly remember what happened next. I went straight to the front door and opened it myself, showing Joe the way out. When he was gone, the will was read, and true to my word, Joe's inheritance was left to Riley. She was a crying mess and thanked us for being her family when her own blood turned their backs on her. I simply said that she did the same for me and Matt. Joe left that day but continued to try and contact me. He was desperate for reconciliation and even left his new wife, who had previously convinced him to cut us off. Suffice it to say, he is going through hell while I am preparing to watch Riley walk down the aisle to her happiness. I still miss Matt like crazy, but I can't say I miss Joe at all. He chose to abandon us, and I have finally made my peace with it. I have Riley along with the beautiful memories of my husband and children, which are enough to last me this lifetime.